One giant leap for mankind.
Hey guys, welcome to my podcast. Well, it's more of a video, but whatever. My name is Esteban Carrera, and I'd like to bring you guys through a small video on why the space race was worth it. So many people believe that the space race was a vastly overfunded competition for bragging rights between America and Soviet Russia. But I personally believe that the competition was actually worth every penny we spent for the following reasons. One, it helped contain communism by, in case you guys didn't know, the space race was basically a competition on the global stage against America and Russia to see whose government and country was better. Whoever would get there first obviously proved that their way of doing things was much, much better because they were able to land on the moon, which is something the humankind had only dreamed about for centuries. It also helped Americans, like millions and millions of Americans, with their everyday lives. All the technology that was invented during the space race, I could sit here and talk for hours about it. There's just so much good, and I promise you, like, there's technology that was created in the 1960s that we use every single day, every second of the day, and I'll get to that later. Um, and then lastly, one of my more interesting points is how America restructured the education system because of the space race. So, some historical background to get into. Um, Globally, World War II had just ended. A lot of the European countries that have been very powerful up until this point in world history had now been completely destroyed economically and physically because of the war. Cities had been bombed, factories obliterated by both Axis and Allied powers. Governments were in mass amounts of debt as they tried to rebuild from all the destruction of the war. Really, only two major superpowers rose, and that was the United States of America, which was democratic, and then there was the USSR, which was communist. Even though these guys had been allies during the war, tensions quickly rose because these two countries did not share much in common. Soon after the war ended, a very, very long conflict known as the Cold War began. Think of the Cold War between the two super nations as you would a passive aggressive argument between family members. There's a lot of passive aggressive snipes, a lot of low key things being said under their breath. Nobody really knows if it's going to turn into full on fighting. Finally, in 1957, the Soviet Union launches Sputnik 1 into orbit of the Earth. And it's a tin ball that just beeps and orbits Earth, but propaganda, good old propaganda, spreads across America, causes mass chaos. Everybody thinks that this is some type of communist, like, super laser weapon or spying device looking at you while you're taking a shower, looking at you while you're doing your taxes, etc., etc. Not even a year passes, and Dwight Eisenhower signs an executive order creating the first federal agency for space exploration, which would become to known as NASA, and boom, the space race had officially started. America and the Soviets were now on the global stage to prove once and for all who is better. Getting into my first point, that the space race helped contain communism. In 1947, a man by the name of George F. Kennan, who had spent a lifetime as a Foreign Service officer, told Congress that the main element of any United States policy towards the Soviet Union must be that of long-term, patient, but firm and vigilant containment of Russian expansive tendencies. This article helps shape U.S. politics towards communism for the next 40 years, which meant if the Soviets were going to the moon, we had to go there. Not only that, we had to beat them there to show everybody that we were better. This was very important for the time period because a lot of countries were in the process of rebuilding, redoing governments, just restructuring everything, and they were looking at the America and Russia to see who was better. Maybe that might have some factor in who they ally with. I don't know about you guys, but if I was picking who I'd want to side with, uh, I definitely want to go with the winning side, whichever one seemed more powerful, whichever one seemed stronger, whichever one seemed smarter, and whoever won the space race would prove that to the whole world. Moving on to my next point was that the space race catapulted America years into the future when it came to science and technology. Rocket technology created for getting to space helped create intercontinental ballistic missiles. The space race did not just only help wage war, but it helped bring products and technology that made life easier for millions of Americans every single day, even to today. I could sit here and talk for hours about the amount of things that were invented or improved on the way up to the moon, but to keep it short, I'll just highlight a few big ones. The GPS was created by the military, piggybacking off of the space race for delivering ordinances to precise locations. We now use that. I don't need to tell you what you use a GPS for. Anti-icing systems for spaceships were incorporated into planes by Boeing, and this allowed planes to fly higher without having to worry about icing to get above winds to help fuel economy, make airfare cheaper and more affordable for everybody. The HACCP, which was a system created by NASA, it controlled food and germs and crumbs in packaged and vacuum sealed goods because all that were huge problems in space. The FDA switched to this concept in the 90s, and it's actually still in use today. So all the canned and vacuum sealed stuff that we have NASA to thank that it's all clean, we hope. Even things like the CAT scan were based off of technology that was developed by JPL, Jet Propulsion Labs, here in Texas for deep space scans. Even the modern day microchip, what is known as the modern day microchip, was actually developed by another Texas company known as Texas Instruments, with money given to them by NASA in order to help out on the way up to the moon. Finally, one of the lesser talked about but certainly super important points because it affects everybody who's lived in America is the education system and how the space race helped mold and change it. In the 1958, in response to Russian interest in space-related education, Congress voted and passed an act known as the National Education Act, which shifted our education system to what it is now, math and science-based, job training, as well as diverting $1 billion in back then's money, so that's a ton of money, to the education system in order to get more training for teachers, alongside bringing everyday technology like the overhead projector and science test kits to more classrooms across the nation. Now, this directly affects me. I remember in elementary school, they still used overhead projectors and things like that. All that stuff was brought to us by this education bill that was passed in 1958. In conclusion, I think the space race was so much more than just planting the red, white, and blue deep into the moon. The space race changed our country, world, and everyday lives forever. JPL credits almost all of everyday life conveniences in today's society to the scientific advancements during the 1960s, fueled by the space race. Not only that, but there is undeniable evidence in how America changed our education system for the better, alongside showing the world that America's, hand in hand with democracy, was simply the best form of government, helping prevent the spread of communism. Thank you guys so much for listening in. I hope you enjoyed it. I know we covered a lot, but I only had 8 minutes. So you guys take it easy. Have a good one.